They're gonna kill the love of my life.
Casey!
If I don't go back to what I was doing.
Our line of work is quite brutal and quite ruthless.
How far would you go for love?
You steal truck, bring it to me. Then you make your money.
Is it dangerous?
Of course it's dangerous!
Nicholas Hoult, Felicity Jones, with Ben Kingsley and Anthony Hopkins.
All this trouble, all this pain, for love.
Collide, now playing. Rated PG-13, may be inappropriate for children under 13.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. This is your host, Llorraine Neithardt, and you have reached Venus Unplugged, your virtual heartbreak hotel. What happens here is we explore the archetypal world of Venus, her myth and mayhem, her divine mysteries, the sacred arts of soul making, and how she operates inwardly and outwardly. So today we're exploring, the last couple of weeks we've been exploring the major arcana in the tarot, and this is not for divination, for divining. It's using the tarot, the major arcana, as a form of a talisman or a focus or a visual, because the psyche, soul, works in symbols. It doesn't speak English or Japanese or any other language. It speaks the language of symbol. So we are looking at the symbolic meaning of the sixth tarot card, which is the Lovers. We love that. So when we meditate, or these, the principles that are alive but hidden, esoteric means hidden knowledge, in these images are very powerful when activated, and you can activate them. Let's say you need, you're working on your own individuation process, right? And which is no easy task. And you need that inner marriage. It's called the conjunctio in alchemy. That inner marriage, what would that look like? So you would meditate on the lovers and get a sense of what they're together and yet they're opposite, which is always the tension of the opposite in the lovers. Or you want to attract a love in your life to experience your own otherness. The fantasy, when we fall in love, remember it's a fall, it's not an ascent, we drop, we fall down, the ego collapses, and suddenly we are vulnerable. We are our selves, known and unknown, exposed to that other in the beloved. And then the dynamic begins. So we use this tarot card when we want to bring love into our life, when we really want to get a sense of what self-love, and you can only attract the level of love in an outer relationship to the level of your own consciousness. You can't attract a prince if you're busy being the milkmaid. Doesn't work. Or Cinderella. She didn't snag the prince while she was cleaning the kitchen. When she came out of that kitchen and started to become herself and listen to the fairy godmother who was her highest self, that's when the attraction began and her journey of individuation. So when we're meditating or looking, and we can you can take a picture of it, you can get pictures of the lovers on Pinterest. If you have a deck of cards, you can take this lover's card around with you to remind you It's also the card of receiving. What is it that we need to receive? So you may recognize that you're lonely. And that at the same time, you may realize that without separation, there can be no connection, no demonstration of love. And then we get attracted to that which we wish to merge with. And that can be an art form. When we merge, when we're taken over, when we're possessed by the eros in an art form, by the muse, that's a form of lovers. The beloved doesn't have to be a person. And all of this, whether it's an outer love or an inner love, is meant to take us into our own truth of self-love and self-respect and deep understanding of the inner marriage. And once we start to grasp the inner marriage, it's a little easier for those outer union states or marriages that play out in our life. So when the lovers, and we may not know what that is. I've seen lots of people who've had a lot of encounters, but nothing touched their heart. So, in a sense, they're virginal. They conquer, that's Venus on crack, when it's just about power. But when it's about union, that's completely different. So we need to see these different levels of how we're relating. Being needy and wanting that person to come along and make you whole, you're asking for a tour of duty in hell, because that person can't do that. And if they could, you're in the cold part of hell. If anybody can promise, I will take up all the responsibility, and you can be just eternally the child, and I will do this for you. That's not love. That's danger. So this path, this of the lovers, and it's a path. It's being able to look at ourselves and realize that in all cases, that the lovers, it's an experience of the agony of separation and the bliss of union. We learn that there's a certain ecstasy in separation, and that is the triumph of individual achievement. And there can also be a terrible agony in union, or union without a sense of oneness can feel like an unfulfilling bondage. So this is one of the mysteries of the lovers, that separation contains union and union contains separation, and these two concepts repeat infinitely within each other. Knowing that love is both an opportunity and a curse. The object of the lovers is to tune into basic goodness, to attune pure unconditional love, both on the inner and the outer levels. That's a very hard thing to do. And the path to doing that is being able to understand what is it that we bring to this stage, to this encounter of the lovers. We usually bring history. For every new love, we're dragging our history. And if we haven't transformed our history into a new way of understanding or integrated it into a form of wisdom, It's the same old thing, just a different outfit. So the lovers, and it's true, internally, when we're needing self-love and we turn on ourselves, it's like treason. It's self-treason of our own soul. And then the addiction to perfection comes in and says, you're not worthy of love because you're not perfect, blah, 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 blah. And it's not about perfect. It's about the attempt towards union with the other, the part of us that we don't know. And just because we don't know it, or it doesn't match our ego, who we think we are, because in the lovers, when we're in this, also when you're meditating or working or using this or being reminded, take a picture of it and put it on your cell phone so every time you look at it, there it is. You're also bringing in the god Eros, who can cause strife and upsetting old patterns of law and order and making a new way to life to come in. Because Eros, in this fiery energy, his potency transcends mere sexual passion. Eros is the divine fire that we burn in and are burned off our ideas of what love is and isn't. And I'm sure you've all experienced it when one falls in love. You usually get about 6 months out of the projection. And then after that, the projection falls and we start seeing the other for who they are, and we can feel very betrayed by that. Wait a second. I thought you were perfect. That's when the real relationship begins. Or that's when you'll begin to understand, this is what I'm in for. But dang, man, I attracted this again. I'm obviously not finished with this, or I need to see this is kind of like a test. When Saturn is testing us with through the vehicle of Venus, walk away from it. We don't have to suffer externally because we've attracted it again. We can go do the inner work. Oh, God, I attracted another addict. All right? So you don't stay with the addict if you don't want to, or if it's endangering you, or you've had enough, or you know the outcome. Then you go find that inner addict. Where's that connection? Where are you terrified of intimacy? Because that is the greatest wounding of addicts. They long, but I mean long, for that intimacy, that union, that connection, that cosmic whole. They can feel very lonely because they can't make that connection. It's hard work. So also that the lovers is the tarot or trump card number is 6. 6 is like the 6-pointed star, and the Pythagorean, they called it the perfect number because it's the number of completion. So all these hints, and there, the tarot cards and all of these symbols, and I mean, you could just, there are so many different ways. I'm just giving you like a little breath of the significance of the lovers and what it means to you and what it means to the world. What is the old saying? All the world loves a lover. Depends. If they're a poor, you're not going to love them. So that this is part of the, when we have an encounter, or look at the movies that you love. What is it that catches you, that springs forth? Let it reveal the secret. Do you want that union because you really secretly want to go back to childhood paradise and let someone else take over while you just revel in, I don't know, being taken care of? See, it's the inner situation. We need to make it conscious. If one fails again and again, rejoice in that holy failure. Because it's just letting you know, nope, I'm not going to get away with that. And thank you that you're not allowing me to spend the rest of my life trying to stay an infant. Or let's say in the lovers, you're afraid to be really authentically you because you may not be loved. You're definitely on the wrong train with that one. You see, if you speak your mind, if you have a sense of yourself, we have to, or we need to learn to choose, then submit to the dictates of archaic fears. We need to face the fear. Because the lovers are the opposites, and of course there's going to be fear. When we use this tarot card to, and it's not just attracting, it could be all levels of lovers, whatever, of the union of opposites. It can be in the animal kingdom, it can be in the heavens, it can be in so many different ways where we begin to recognize, like, wow, we need to be careful. Leftover needs from childhood will generally oblige one to be attracted to a person who is to fulfill those needs. And there will be disappointment of that, we know, because there was disappointment in the childhood. You need to fulfill those needs for yourself. So when we realize, I've done it again, you can leave that, or you can make a conscious, and it doesn't mean that the partner is working towards that too. That would be marvelous. But even if you're in a situation that you're stuck in, just say, okay, then I am going to use this to work on my own material. Let that person be who that person wants to be, and I'm going to see where it drives me up a wall. And while I'm banging my head against that wall, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to look. I remember years ago, there was this guy that I thought I liked, and he was a vegan, which is kind of cool. Right? I'm not, but, that's... But as I began to realize, which took me a grand total of 2 dates, then I was over it, that, in his kind of puer, boyish, pure in his own thoughts, but harsh in his behavior, he was this sanctimonious vegan. And he was pure and untouched by animal. Oh, boy, that took me about 30 seconds, and I was ready. I felt the fire of Eros, right? And I was just watching this guy once I realized, wow, this is total puer, cockamamie stuff. And I just prayed. I thought, I hope a sacred cow, just flies over this guy's head and takes a hot shit on him. And he gets to realize, because I couldn't take it, because his innocence was a manipulation and a blinder. So I had to realize that. He can go be whoever he wants to be. He can be as sanctimonious as he wishes to be. If I see the shadow, my own or another's, guess whose game it is? You see what you see. And this isn't about, throwing projections back and forth at one another. It's really sitting and working on, okay, what is it that I'm really looking at? What is it that I'm really feeling? Feelings don't lie. They can't. Our interpretation can be a little wacky. But that's part of what soul making is. It's we can't neglect Venus. She's necessary. We can't neglect beauty. We can't neglect the lovers, because if we do, we're always going to feel, and more important, the lovers within. And people are so much more sophisticated than they've ever been about union and love. So let's say you're working with the lover card, right? And you're either in a relationship and you're trying to really get a grasp of what that loving is, all right? But suddenly you get jealous, right? And in that jealousy, there's a gift. And then you can ask yourself, what do you know about yourself that in your jealousy you're not admitting? Because in each one of these archetypal feelings is a divinity, is a myth. Myths are living principles. Or read the book She by Robert Johnson. It's a great book on the journey of consciousness, of the soul. All right? So this is what the lovers will bring to you. Sometimes it will bring the opposite. And it's like, no, I don't want that. But that's what you need. May not be what you want, but it is what you need. Or you can use this tarot card to get a sense of union, a sense of balance. What does that look like when the opposites come together? We need to be careful. We're blaming our partner for, we set up a mind land. We set up, that's the trickery. And then the person steps into that. And then we repeat our historic wounding. And the responsibility of union within. It's all about responsibility. Being able to say, this is my life, this is my lovers within, and I attract without, that the other was not put on the earth to serve or take care of me or protect me from my life. And it's a profound, truly profound disappointment when we have to accept that. Oh, we don't have to, but you can go on creating misery for yourself and others if you so wish. Because taking responsibility for one's journey is part and parcel of individuation. And the individual, that's what individuation is to be an individual, as nature designed, as fate designed. Very often we are afraid, absolutely terrified to be ourselves. And we are afraid to be wholly responsible. That's a big one. And responsibility isn't just doing your homework and paying your bills, and it's about work. It's a responsibility to Venus, because if she's ignored, now Venus may not be your guiding light. She may not be the myth. We're all unconsciously identified with a myth. And when we start to understand what that myth is, we can see, that's how it's working in our life. So, but when Venus is ignored, you'll get her wrath. When there's an opportunity to honor, and any of the deities, we need to be respectful of these different archetypes within us. And when that happens, so when Venus is not honored, like in the case of this puer, he just wanted to be pure. And that was, that's Artemis. She's the virgin one. She's been running around and shoots arrows and doesn't really, she stays pure, and that's who she is. Pure thought, pure mind. All right? But pisses Venus off. Wait a second. What about me? We need to have passion. We need to have beauty. We need to have union. Just not running around being sanctimonious because of your diet. Really? Wow. Or also, let's say with the purity of the diet of, which is also very Artemis, anorexia and bulimia. It's that pure. I just want to be pure. I don't want to be touched by folly or all those waters of life and all those fluids. It's like, ugh, no, she's messy. She's wild, that Venus. She gets us in trouble. But it's a necessary trouble. So as I said, she may not be your main squeeze, or the archetype that is ruling your soul. But when in her presence, bow down and praise. Isn't that beautiful? Just by saying that alone, that's honoring her. That's a prayer. When we're in awe over something. And, everybody has a different sense of what beauty is, all right? But when we see it and don't give credit, you've offended her. So something's going to happen. Maybe not immediately, but people dry out when they don't have that. They may be pure, but there's no lusciousness. There's no juices. There's no enlivenment. There's no eros, which also means there's no imagination. Because the images, the symbolic images, like in the image of the lovers, begins to give us a sense of what that feels like, what that sense of union would be. Then pay attention to your fantasies. Right? When we become aware of our fantasies, then we start to see, actually, that fantasy is a part of me that, I really don't want to take responsibility for loving fully, and I'm going to get the other person to do the work. Or I'll be with somebody who I really don't love that much, but doesn't tax me, and a nice person, and will do my bidding. Codependency. Or, looking at that sense of the lovers, what would that feel like within your own being? To experience, well, first it's the chaos before the union state. That's what happens in alchemy. Or something comes into our life and we fight against it. Instead of saying, let me meditate, or let me use this talisman of the lovers so I can bring union to this opposite. Because it's an opposite in you that wants your love. Every part of you, shadow and light, wants your love. And when we refuse that, we offend Venus, we offend our soul, we offend the divine design of who we are as humans. That is our one right, to be completely and wholly human. That's the experience we're having here. So in that, recognize, I can't date this person unless I lose 5 pounds. What are you talking about? Most people don't even notice. That's that purity. Just go out on the date. Or go flirt. Bring union. See what it's about. So have a absolutely lustful week filled with joy and union and just attraction, celebrate the lovers, celebrate within and without, and celebrate when you see it in life. When you see two people, like two little old people holding their hands. Oh, my God. That sends me into seventh heaven. It's so beautiful what those hands are telling one another. So have an absolutely Venus-filled Lovers Week. And next week we will continue with the symbolism and working with the tarot as forms of talisman, as magical, visionary forces. Take care. Bye-bye.